This is Dan Max at eXp Realty, aka the Trading Agent. Little live AM chat review for Thursday, December 29th, 2022. Hopefully you're doing well. Market's about to get fired up. Wanted to do this just to kind of talk about what I'm going to probably be doing this morning, which maybe potentially is a whole lot of nothing. Want to talk about some of the price levels, some of the action, some of the things we referred to yesterday. Just kind of follow up. Took a few days off and feel refreshed, feel ready to roll. When I say took a few days off, just was out of town. You know, it's good to get away sometimes. So let me get a mic check real quick when you get a chance. I would appreciate it. Anybody out there? I know it's usually hard to jump in the beginning. People are watching stuff, but hopefully a lot of the hard work was done yesterday. Talked about that. So, anybody have any questions? Can see what's going on in the Discord room. I appreciate everybody. Just going to watch Tesla here. Not surprised. It's gapping up today. We talked about potentially bottom yesterday, picking up some shares between 108, 110. Probably didn't get as much as we wanted, hoping it might be a multi-day range. But it is what it is. You take the gap up. Now where I was thinking it probably fills the gap from, was that just Tuesday? Or no, Monday? 122, 123. Do you take the 10% at the open? It's really up to you. That is really a preference thing. At this point, if you did stick the landing and you did get a full position, maybe. But since I only have a partial position, probably going to let it ride and look to add if there are dips. Now the question people ask, are you a bull long term on Tesla? No, absolutely not. This is just a trade, purely a trade. And we're going to go from there. It's just pretty much that simple. I know a lot of people want to complicate it maybe and say, well, Elon this and this is this and Tesla this and the stock market that. No, it's just a trade. I think we just trade it. I mean, again, what do we talk about? Laggards not leading, stocks getting stuck long term, being in what we call purgatory. It's not only a price correction but a time correction. We've got both, right? You've got both. And so, as someone who called the top in November of last year, just talking about how this blow-off straight line move was the top, then it dropped and then chopped around. I'm thinking, we're looking for whatever this multi-day move is. And it could be, 3 or 4 days. And it could be a week. We're expecting a pop. How high I said in the recaps, again, if you're not following, please subscribe, follow, hit the notification bells. You get notification what's going on. So I would not be surprised if you hit somewhere in the 140s. That seems like a huge move, right? Is it though? We just came from 310. Remember when we talked about shorting up here? I know some people, we bought some Tesla Q, didn't ride it all the way down, but we talked about the failed retest multiple times and then drop. Well, that would not be out of the ordinary of some sort of extended pop if the market is going to get what I would consider stupid in the sense of it's doing things that, and again, you can see based on sentiment, and you gotta love when the fibs line up with this stuff. People start expecting what the news is going to feed them, and as much as I do believe there will be a recession at some point, GDP 3.2% last quarter, this quarter probably going to be a lot lower. Is it negative? Good question. Don't know. However, let's just focus on what we do know, right? And what is that? Everyone's calling for a recession. Some of the data is showing weakening. Got it. No doubt. Fed's coming up. No doubt. But the market's meant to be traded. Now, when the SPY drops, look, let's jump into that. Almost 30-something 5 points from the highs, 410 down to what? Quickly. That's a big move. That's a very big move, especially with the seasonality of the bullishness that usually reflects this time of year. What should you expect then? Well, like every other year, seasonality of new money coming in. What day? People always ask this question and go, the Santa Claus rally didn't start on Christmas Eve or the day after. Yep, got it. Oh, it hasn't started today, meaning yesterday or the day before. Okay. Well, we referenced the bottom, right? We said you got to just stay within this candle, hold in this area, 375 to 382. Look what happened. I mean, you can probably see it better on the hourly. Let me pull up the hourly, actually. I mean, here it was. You just couldn't get over, this 382 area. So you had the extreme down here. Now remember, this is some of the pre-market action or sorry, I'm like pausing, like got a text. And or just referencing this area right here. This is kind of what I was concerned with every time, is this 382, because we got over it, closed out it, chopped around it. You could see it. It's a low here, for the mid-January or mid-December. That was the area. Just, you got to get over it. You got to get over it. Let me redraw these fibs. This is a fib, a different chart, converted into hourly. You can see, just got to watch this area. Now, this morning's gap up, people are asking, well, is this a professional gap? Knowing the seasonality time of the year, depending on what the jobs, what do we got? Chicago PMI tomorrow. Probably going to be a rally. Now, at the open here, again, that's why I'm not even really that focused on it, because you get used to this, is that it's going to be amateur hour, right? Could there be some profit taking? Absolutely. Remember, tax loss selling is not done until tomorrow for the year. If there's someone who's waiting to sell, and you got the procrastinators, the people who wait to the last minute, well, there you go. That doesn't bother you. So at this point, we've talked about many times, like the timing of it, when it plays out, when it starts, and these gaps. Well, this gap might be the one. And so, the people who are frustrated, who are, angry, I mean, you just don't know what chop is like then. You're just not familiar with it. Because if you thought this was frustrating, imagine these bigger ranges. And we talk about this all the time, like these bigger ranges. Sometimes this is what happens. Okay, well, here you go. And I still remember people like losing their mind down here. I was like, I think we bottomed. It's just a matter of when it turns around. And then we had this one day, it was like, and then turned up. Well, we're expecting the top, and we're worried about this candle. But again, at the time, it felt more trappish, because when it hit the 20-day and bounced, and then the next day had like this wide and loose candle that closed with 20-day, it didn't feel too bad. This gap down, that was the beginning of like the confirming of the end at this point, and hence why we had stops on some of the positions that we had. And remember, we're taking profits. The more we're up, the less we own. I mean, it's so simple sometimes, but yeah, not. So with this action today, I mean, do we get back down to 376? Probably not. Probably not. Remember, tax loss selling, peaking, Tesla bottoming, which has been probably the main culprit. Check out Apple, right? Is Apple dumping? Nope. Gapping up. Holding, right? We talked about this area being the next support down here in the 126 area. Well, you got it. Is Apple a long-term buy? No. Again, all this stuff is just trades, right? You just trade around it. You have your positions. You know what you're doing. You're just thoughtful about stuff. And as the SPY keeps ripping, are we surprised? No. Let's pull up some of the things we're watching. Just CF. Talked about like this novice gap potential bottom. Let's see what happens here. Now, is it below our support? Yeah, it sucks. But as you've seen before, do traps lead to resolving, novice gaps resolve the other way in time? Stock has a history of it, especially at lows and highs. Now, the gap isn't huge, so we'll see. Mosaic came out after hours or pre-market. Guided great. What are they doing? Flat. So, not really helping. But overall, materials, they don't look terrible. I mean, again, we talked about adding AA yesterday. You did. Congrats. I said watch that mid 43s. Opens back near yesterday's high. Looking pretty good. Senior Roblox. It acted strong into the close yesterday, right? It doji. Remember, notice how the market, it's like tech made new lows. New lows. And now it needs to get up. Well, we'll see what happens today. The open, now this is the thing, probably like Tesla, what you saw in the first couple minutes. Does it sell off the open and then rally back? We don't know. These are all things that you just have to You have to mentally be prepared for the uncertainty of what couldn't happen, how things play out, and just ultimately, near term, next 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, you just don't know. Hence where if you're ever unsure, you take profits, you raise your stops, or, which I prefer to people do, and I tell this all the time, like if you're raising your stops and you're concerned about something, it's easier to sell it on the upswing than letting it come back to you. Because if you're concerned about that, it probably is going to come back. And if it doesn't, okay, well, at least you sold more towards the highs versus, which you see a lot of time, these back checks, right? And you know, something pops, pulls right back, then goes. So hope this helps. I mean, that's kind of where we're at. We talked about some of the recently, like why things didn't look that bad. I mean, talked about FedEx, financials, Boeing. I mean, certain industrial names looking great. Just the whole gambit of things, like banks not turning over, housing stocks looking strong. You know, it just is what it is. The biggest concern, and I've repeated this one a lot recently, is the TLT. We want bonds to stabilize here. This has been and again, this makes sense. The market dumped. And the TLT, remember, they've been following each other all year. Anyone not pay attention to that? Notice how bonds and the market seem to move hand in hand. There was one of the years where the 60-40 portfolio got absolutely beaten, smashed, terrible, absolutely terrible. Okay. We'll see what happens here down at 100. So, I mean, I could just talk, but I figured if you have questions, please ask. Just hanging out. I'm not really doing anything at the moment. Just watching. There's really nothing to do. Tesla, I mean, I'm not surprised by this action at all. Remember, like, think about the psychology. I talked about yesterday's recap and the day before. Like, go read the freaking headlines. The headlines told you what was going to happen. People are like, what are you talking about? Oh, how'd you see that coming? At the lows, they're saying, get the hell out. Game over. The stock is dead. Elon's going to suicide. I mean, whatever you want to pretend the narrative, you know, however you want to take it. I mean, you could see every angle of the hate. And then the price action, the volume started increasing, right? And then we saw at the open yesterday, somebody took a stand. And if you remember, the market is what? A liquidity-driven game. Liquidity. If you short at 310 and you've got the monster position shorting Tesla, are you using the news and the extreme lows to cover? You bet your ass. It's no different than we talked about. Where's a Meta like a high? Good old Meta. Right? Let me clean this chart up. It's on the 60. Here you go. Here was their earnings, right? In October. Now, it didn't bottom the first day, but there you could see the surges in the liquidity after, again, think about where it came from, right? This thing has been, no, my 60. Let me go to the daily. You can see it. It's the same stuff, though. It's essentially the same thing. Channeling down. Been a dog. 360. Gap down. Takes time, then rallies. Then goes nowhere. This gap down. Tight action. Dogecoin. Gap. Takes a couple days. That's why we're trying to be patient on Tesla. Because, again, you can get these negative headlines and it seems like everything's terrible. Piece of crap. No one wants this. Yeah, we get it. And so sometimes it's 2, 3, 4. I mean, you don't know how many days. Right? So hence why people are like, well, you didn't have a full position. Well, again, I was assuming, and this, remember, assumptions don't always work. This gap down might be down here for 2 or 3 days. So I was going to pick the levels to reload. Well, guess what? It gaps up the morning. Am I complaining? No. At least I'm not losing. Like everybody who's been buying for months. So, any other questions, thoughts, concerns? I mean, it seems pretty quiet this morning. I know a lot of people probably in the holidays, traveling, doing their thing. Just be safe out there. That's the goal here. Just be thoughtful, be safe, be smart. Anyone in the Discord room, I can see what's going on there. Seems pretty quiet. Not much chiming in here. Hopefully this will be good to review later. Keep in mind, we said Tesla probably 122, 123. Seems like we're cooking. And I could just roll through a gambit of stocks real quick just for folks watching this after the fact. SMH, we talked about getting like to the low here, testing this area around what, 197. Gap up. We've seen a gap up fail before, so just keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Good old Appleton. Mid candle. We'll see what happens here. Hit the support. I'm trying to think of like anything. The Qs. Remember we talked about what the 260 level, right? Hit it. Gap up. We've seen this before. We need to continue higher, or at worst, base to go higher. Names like Microsoft we talked about holding this area down here. We saw a lot of names doing this, compressing, not making new lows. As much as I, would probably don't really have any inclination with Bitcoin here, but notice MicroStrategy does their what do you call it? Their deal, where they just they're trading in some they're buying some more Bitcoin, leveraging up, not failing on that news. Netflix, man, we really liked it down here. Didn't get any. Look at that. Boom. Gaps up. And that happens. I mean, you can be mad about it, or you get what I consider just more comfortable, confident, thoughtful. Hey, at least you're right. It's sometimes how you have to take it. It's like and I like to use poker references. It's like, again, having pocket aces versus ace 10. Ace 10 gets cracked very rarely. It happens. Do you get mad about it? Do you quit playing poker? Or do you stew on it? Or you just go, oh shit, that happens. My bad. Damn. Right? But at least you had the right read. You did the right things. If that makes sense. Like you're doing the right things. So hope that helps. Since there's no comments, concerns, thoughts, questions, I think I'm just going to let it roll. And this was just a good, quick chat. Appreciate it. If you have any questions, please reach out. Always here to help. Dan Max, eXp Realty, aka the Trading Agent, here to help. Talk to y'all later.